Hello, good morning, and welcome to Daybreak on Trust TV. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
I'm Sunday Michael Ogu. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, except that the fire queues are back.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like they're back with full force this time.
Honestly. But you know what's funny in all of it? All the black market filling stations are selling.
Then you wonder how they actually managed to get these products.
Maybe the DSS have been overwhelmed. Sort of their intervention ensured that we had constant supply, even when states across the federations were complaining about supply and all. But now the reverse is the case.
Exactly.
The update is that Lagos now has fuel, and
other places.
yes, and the excuse is that the disruption in the presidential election has impacted supply.
Well, definitely everything now will be ascribed to these elections. I mean, like it's a go-to thing for everybody now. Whenever something happens, they will point to the elections, the ones that were held, the ones that are still yet to be held, the ones that are being pushed down the line.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. It's making life very hellish for the average.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people actually believed that maybe after the governorship elections, things might start to reset, and people were looking forward to it happening. And unfortunately, we got the news that that can has been kicked down the road again.
Misery has been further extended.
Exactly.
I mean, beyond those, I am worried about people who had fixed their weddings.
Exactly. People actually made their timetable to conform with whatever was on ground.
A whole lot of things.
And now things have been disrupted.
Now that has been disrupted.
And that is quite unfortunate.
Honestly.
All right, well, let's take a look at the headlines of this morning. Well, starting with INEC. Why we postponed governorship election.
Let's stay with INEC. INEC declares no winner in Dogua's constituency, fixes rerun in 13 polling units.
And open banking, CBN directs banks to seek consent before using customers' data. Moving
on to the details of the story. On the Independent National Electoral Commission has confirmed the postponement of the governorship election by a week. Confirming the postponement in a statement on Wednesday night, Barrister Festus Okoye, National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voters Education Committee, said the commission needed time for the reconfiguration of the beavers used for the presidential election held on the 25th of February 2023. He recalled that on the 3rd of March, the presidential EPT had given an experte order for some political parties to inspect materials used for the presidential election, including the forensic inspection of over 176,000 beavers used in the election, which are located in the INEC local government offices across the country. Daily Trust had reported how the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja granted the request of INEC to reconfigure the beavers it used for the presidential election. The court, in a unanimous decision by a 3-member panel of justice, held that preventing the commission from reconfiguring the beavers would adversely affect the governorship and state elections. It dismissed objections by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi against the request.
Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has declared that there was no winner in the February 25th National Assembly election in Dogwa and Tudunwada federal constituencies. Alassane Dogwa, Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, who contested on the All Progressives Congress platform, was initially declared winner of the exercise. However, the electoral umpire delisted his name from the reps-elect and failed to issue him a certificate of return. The commission has said he was declared winner of the election under duress. The returning officer said he was forced to announce the winner of the election. He said that the difference between the two leading candidates was less than the number of votes cancelled.
I was made to declare the election results of Dogwa Tudunwada Federal Constituency on the 25th of February 2023 under duress. Meanwhile, Section 65 of the Electoral Act 2022 has empowered INEC to review such declaration, and also the Commission has exercised that power by reviewing the declaration within the days stipulated. I, Professor Ayakase, now declare, after the reviewed results, that ABC scored 150 votes, APC scored 39,732 votes. NNPP scored 34,798 votes. PDP scored 2,091 votes. PRP scored 105 votes. However, elections were cancelled in 13 polling units in Tudunwara local government, with a total number of 7,083 registered voters, while the PVCs collected was 6,917. The margin of lead between the two parties with the highest score is 4,934, which clearly shows that if the total number of PVCs collected in the 13 polling units cancelled is added to the second runoff, it will change the result of the election of the constituency. That is, the margin of lead between the two leading parties, that's the APC and NNPP, is less than the total number of PVCs in the cancelled polling units. I therefore declare a supplementary election in the 13 polling units has to be conducted to get a clear winner.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has issued operational guidelines for open banking in Nigeria on Wednesday. According to report, the guideline established principles for data sharing across banking and payment systems. In the guideline, the CBN shall provide and maintain an open banking registry to provide regulatory oversight on participants, enhance transparency, and regulate operators within the open banking ecosystem. The guideline also stipulates consent of customers is required before their data can be obtained for open banking products and services, among others. CBN's Director of Payment Systems Management Department, Mr. Musa Jimo, stated that the guidelines were in furtherance of the bank's mandate to stabilize the financial system. Jamo added that the guidelines were also pursuant to the bank's role in deepening the financial system in the country.
All right, that's it for the headlines. At the moment, we'll take a look at some reports. President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed to Nigerians living in diaspora to support the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu as he takes over the reins of government on May 29th. His message was specifically targeted at Nigerians living in Doha, Qatar, who interacted with him at a town hall meeting on Tuesday night. The president insisted that his administration had conducted credible, transparent and fair elections and will conclude the assignment with the governorship and state assembly elections. Kende Amodu reports.
There are currently about 7,000 Nigerians residing in Qatar who are gainfully engaged in diverse areas of human endeavor. Acknowledging the roles that Nigerians in diaspora have been playing in the development of the country, President Buhari disclosed that his administration had approved a national diaspora policy. The policy would support the development of programs by Nigerians in Diaspora Commission to facilitate the contributions of such citizens towards the development of their fatherland. Nigerian ambassador to Qatar, Yakubu Ahmed, believes that the successful conduct of presidential and National Assembly elections on the 25th of February is proof that Nigeria's democracy is indeed strong.
I equally pray for another round of successful exercise during the governorship and State House of Assembly election that will be held next Saturday.
In a similar vein, the Nigerian community in Qatar is thanking the president for de-emphasizing vote buying during those elections.
This is an election where money has taken backstage. We were very scared after the primaries, but we are so grateful to see what happened at this time of the presidential and national assembly election.
I also want to really thank you for your critique of African presidents that really want to stay in office forever.
Beyond the euphoria of meeting with the president, the pertinent question to ask is how does this strategy to engage Nigerians in Qatar positively contribute to the development back home?
Definitely, you see that this hall was full of the most intelligent, the brightest people anyway. Even Qatar is proud of what Nigerians here are doing. There's no field we're not excelling. But here's the thing, how does it translate to your home country? The role of government is to provide an enabling environment, as we always say. And our role is to engage with them. Like already from here, we have some of them that want to build capacity, particularly in the medical field, some of them in the food and beverage business, some of them in the oil and gas business, and some of them are already seeing how they can invest in agriculture back home, bringing businesses back home. So that is the thing. Nobody will develop Nigeria but Nigerians.
Nigeria and the state of Qatar established diplomatic ties in 2013 and have since then maintained very cordial relations. On the president's entourage to Qatar, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
As the world celebrates International Women's Day, the welfare safety challenges facing women come to the fore with a view to addressing their plight for a better society. In Katsina, Abdullahi Yamadi meets some women who are struggling to survive with many orphans, but without shelter, food, and other basic needs.
Women constitute substantial percentage of world's population, with many exposed to dangers and increasing vulnerability in many societies. These women say they are living a miserable life since the day they were forced out of their communities, pushed into begging, exposed to dangers and uncertainty. In specific terms, they said their life's experiences are a mixture of sorrow and happiness.
We solely depend on whatever life offers. Opportunities like this one comes once in a while. We are trained on soap and pomade making. When we produce it, we sell to complement whatever we have just for a living.
At times, they had to go to the bushes to fetch firewood for sale to get what they could feed the children, not to talk of education, which is not a priority for them now. These children were in primary school when bandits attacked and forced them to abandon education pursuits to explore their potentials. The women also said it has never been so bad like this time. But the question is, what do local women make out of the International Women's Day being celebrated annually?
International Women's Day. Where did you get this from? What is Women's Day? To me, women are those enjoying in the offices or those who have better opportunities in their matrimonial homes. To me, what I see is what I have.
Observers say International Women's Day celebration only offers opportunity for sober reflection without much positive impact on vulnerability of the opposite sex by governments and other stakeholders. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now, International Women's Day celebrates successes and contributions of women to societal development across the globe. The day also gives room for reflections on challenges affecting the female gender on various spheres of life. Now, Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail examines the struggles and successes of a 38-year-old visually impaired lady who defied all odds to become an advocate for women's rights in Gombe State. Let's take a look.
The face masks that we are using.
Rebecca Hassan is a 38-year-old visually impaired lady in Gombe Metropolis. She lost vision since she was 13 years old, but despite the vision loss, she studied very hard and graduated from the University of Jos.
The doctor advised us that there is nothing that we can do except they will take me to school. So I started my school in CASES, that is Kaduna Special Education School. Where I went there to learn Braille, reading and writing, because I cannot continue with where I stopped when I was sighted. I have to go back and learn how to read Braille and to learn how to write Braille. That is where I started. I started in Kaduna Special Education Center. So this is where I started, and I proceed to Faith Tabernacle College in Plateau State is where I did my secondary school. Then I moved to University of Jos, that is UJ, where I obtained my degree.
Rebecca, who is passionate about women's rights and education, now runs a non-governmental organization, Inclusive Society for Women and Girls Initiatives.
I will not give up. Even the community sometimes, even to seek advice or to hear your view or to bring you at the table like any other person to come and discuss so that you will say your mind also that you will bring your contribution that will bring the progress of the community. They will see since you have disability, there is no need of bringing you along. There is no need of advice, seeking for your advice. So the challenges everywhere, even in the office, even in the bank, in the market, everywhere.
On the spirit of the 2023 International Women's Day, Rebecca's dream is to help women with disability to access quality education.
Because out of hundreds people, women with disability, more especially here in the north, is very few that went to school. So for that my dream is to see how I touch their life, how to see I bring them out of their bondage, out of where they are, so that they will come and attend school, so that they will achieve like me.
For Rebecca and other persons with disability, they are not disabled. All they need is special attention to present their talent for societal development. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
One of the things Nigerians would remember the outgoing Benue State Governor, Samuel Otom, for is the fact that he made headlines through his outburst on the farmers' headers crisis in Nigeria, as well as member of the J5 PDP governors. As he winds down his second term as governor, Otom lost his senatorial ambition and failed to win his state for Labour Party, a political platform he professed before February 25th presidential and National Assembly elections. As Benue resident heads to the poll again, they say the state is one to watch out for in the governorship and the State House of Assembly election. Jimmy Azandi brings us this report.
Some residents of the state who rated Governor Otom poor in terms of infrastructure and staff welfare are watching and waiting for the March the 11th to speak through the ballot. They also said following the February 25th defeat, the governor is making frantic efforts to win the governorship seat for his preferred candidate and party.
He has learned his lessons from the presidential and National Assembly's elections. Many things that have already been done. One, in the Sankra political axis, we are in three local government areas where there had been a ban on the use of motorcycles and the brand of the motor vehicle popularly known as Doknyash. That ban was lifted yesterday. So many people have been given employment letters beginning from Monday this week to yesterday. A lot of people have been given employment letters.
But to many eligible voters, it is too late for Governor Otom to change the wishes of the Benue people who have already made up their minds on who to vote for irrespective of last-minute campaigns.
The nature of Reverend Father Hysen Yomemalia has caused a lot of joy. Should I say joy? Should I say a lot of political miscalculation and calculation, because a lot of people are not even thinking of politics. A lot of people are seeing the aspect of a reverend gentleman like Father Isaac Memalu coming to cleanse Benue State from the shackles of poverty, underdevelopment, and insecurity. So many things are factored in the candidature of Father Alia, and with the hope that everybody in Benue State is seen and have known that he can do it.
It is left to be seen what comes out of the governorship and state assembly elections in Benue State, vis-a-vis the performance of the governor.
From every indication and all indices on the ground, I can tell you the people of Benue State are fully ready to come out en masse on Saturday, the 11th of March. So far, so good. I can't see any issues. I don't see any fracas. All I believe is a peaceful election come 11th.
Despite the cash crunch, many Benue voters say they will exercise their civic responsibility on Saturday to usher in a new administration.
And that's it for the headlines and reports for this hour. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the show rolls on. Do stay with us. Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Really, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
That's great.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back. You're still watching Trust TV's Daybreak right here. And right now it's time for us to take a look at the front pages of the newspapers to find out what's making the news this morning. We're going to start with the Daily Trust newspaper. And of course, the major story on the front page is on the governorship election. Why we postpone governorship elections? That's according to INEC. And we have riders here that says Commission gets nod to reconfigure BVAS. Tinubu Atiku granted access to election materials, and Buhari arrives Daura for polls. That is on page 4 of the Daily Trust. Moving down the front page there, bandits kill 6, abduct many in fresh Niger attack. It seems like bandits are making a comeback. Details of that are on page 6. Presidential poll aftermath. NSCIA cautions against incitement. You can find details on page 7. And another sad story here, 4-year-old boy's genitals, tongue, eyes removed in Abuja. You can find details of that on page 16. At the very bottom of the front page, Naira, CBN's non-compliance with Supreme Court verdict contemptuous. That is according to Yadudu and Falono. And highest disregard for rule of law and presidency silent. You can find details of that on page 4. Moving towards the top of the front page there, Atiku charges Gazama, 18 other sons to reclaim a mandate, meets IBB. And NCAA moves to review civil aviation regulations 8 years after. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, NAF airstrike kills pregnant woman, 2 teens in Kaduna. You can find details of that on page 5. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And we move on to the Nation newspaper this morning. And the major story there is INEC shift governorship assembly polls by 1 week. And we have there the result of a poll, which is tipping Sanwo-Olu to retain his seat. I'm not sure what these ratings are, but I see poor, average, good, and excellent. To other stories, Umahi, why Lagosians should vote Sanwo-Olu. And to other stories, President-elect inaugurate legal team, defend my mandate. Tinubu hails Masha's peak as G24 director. Don't truncate power transition, NCIA warns. And Gazama leads Atiku legal team as fire raises shops in Lagos, Kanu, hostel in Anambra. These are the major stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, next we'll take a look at the Punch newspaper. The major story is talking about the governorship election, which we've actually seen already. And, well, let's take a look at the riders supporting that story. So, Commission says despite ruling, 176,000 machines can't be reconfigured before Saturday, and election materials distribution disrupted in Delta, Oshun, Bayelsa, Cross River, others. And other stories, Sanwo-Olu orders probe as Buhari sympathizes with market fire victims. That is talking about the fire incident in Lagos. Niger, terrorists kill 5 villagers, abduct 53. That is on page 4. And roadblock, robbers attack Punchman as soldiers extort Ogun motorists. That is a story that can be found on pages 4 and 5. Dogwa left out as reps-elect get certificates of return is another story on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Moving towards the top of the front page there, above the masthead, Naira, Buhari can be prosecuted after May 29th, says SAN. That is on page 7. Companies, consumers' taxes rise by 42%. That is according to the MBS. Long field queues ground Abuja neighboring states, and that is on page 23. And right below the Well said there. National Assembly female membership drops as 11 lose re-election. That is on page 8. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Moving on to First News newspaper this morning, still staying with INEC. INEC shift governorship elections to March 18th to enable commissions reconfigure beavers used for February 25th presidential National Assembly elections. And to other stories there, elections, Tinubu, Atiku, Obi hire 51 sons for legal fireworks. It's beginning to look like presidential election contest is the exclusive preserve of senior advocates of Nigeria. Peter Obi attends court sitting over Beavers case. Buhari heads straight to Dara from Qatar. And INEC declare no winner in Dogua's constituency, fixes rerun in 13 polling units. I have provided jobs and empowerment for all NSAS victims in Lagos. Atiku hires 19 sons to challenge Tinubu's victory. And International Women's Day promote gender equality in FCT. In ICT, Catamaran deck pirates urge Federal Government, National Assembly. And these are the major stories on the front page of First News newspaper this morning.
All right, next we'll take a look at News Direct, talking about the governorship elections, but a different spin on it, saying confusion as litigations, technical gaps force postponement of elections. And riders here that says court ruling came too late to perfect reconfiguration, according to INEC. Postpones election to March 18th, adjust campaign schedule till midnight, Thursday, March 16th. Fix bugs, glitches in BVAS machines, other election technology, eliminate corrupt staff, that is the MBA to INEC. And INEC issues a certificate to return 2 reps elect. Going towards the bottom of the front page there, Ogun Guba, Atiku's polling agent, Mo Kashamu, Adebutu loyalists declare support for Governor Abiodun APC. At the very bottom of the front page there, despite Supreme Court order, Nigerians reject old Naira notes, await CBN directive. Police arraign Atiku Rep's ally arrested with $498,100 in Port Harcourt. And Atiku gathers 17 sons to fight Tinubu. At the very top of the front page there, Adelike's 100 day in office uneventful, says Oshun APC. NCDMB BOL partner on oil gas park funds scheme. And statutory rape, prophet allegedly assaults visually impaired minor in Lagos. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of Nigerian News Direct.
And moving on to Blueprint, we will now be sprinting through most of the headlines as it appears. They seem to be dwelling on the same issue. Governor Chief House of Assembly delayed court rulings on PVAS forces poll shift. INEC pleads for understanding. To other stories, bandit kill pregnant woman, 4 others adopt 50 in Kano. Slay 6 vigilante at Brini Gwari checkpoint. And those are some massive loss there as a result of the attack. Buhari, Lawan, Tinubu, Bello, others hail Osibanjo at 66. Masked men kill security guard, burn Lagos spare parts market. EcoBank celebrate women assures of equal treatment at workplace. And International Women's Day tallying count losses over women's exclusion from digital economy. These are the major stories on the front page of Blueprint newspaper. We now have joining us in the studio, as always, the editor-in-chief, Deadline newspaper, Marlon Nasrallah. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Interesting development in our polity. We're all very tired from the presidential elections, but somehow we were hoping we could just flow with the tide and get this governorship done with, and maybe begin to sort of get our lives back, because everything seemed to have taken a back seat and waiting for these elections to happen. How did you react to the news of the postponement of the governorship election?
Well, personally, to me, it didn't come as a surprise. So many people had, anticipated that. From what INEC said initially, that they will require some, is it 5 or between 5 and a week, I think, to be able to do this reconfiguration so that the beavers can be redeployed again for the governorship and state assembly elections. But you can see so many people are not happy, especially those who have, like, decided to do some things on that particular date that the elections will now hold. So many weddings, so many events, now have to be cancelled because of this. And then in another way, if you look at it, it's an opportunity for those who think they still have some, engagements to do with the electorate to be able to do that. And then there are also some people who have have already sapped their energy, and they're just looking for ways to conclude this so that, like you said, they can get their lives back. But we are also heading towards the final transition. So immediately after the election, all our focus will now be on the transition proper, when the president will be handing over to the president-elect, because you have 80 or even less days to go.
Oh, we're still talking about the postponement of the election. A lot of people are actually looking at the fact that INEC is creating a logistical problem for itself by having to recall all the BVAS machines back to the headquarters, reconfigure, and then redeploy them again. So isn't there a way to make this process a bit less painful?
Well, it has to do with trust, like we keep saying. Probably they don't believe that any outsider, or they shouldn't allow, people without the necessary mandate to be able to do that. So they want to control it, so that already people are saying the data that is stored in there may be tampered with, and maybe they want to do away with all that speculation, assumptions, and what have you. So because of that, they think it's better for them to do the recalling, do the reconfiguration, and then redeploy again, because like you said, this involves money, and if we can do it without spending money unnecessarily, honestly, even the system will be better for it. But like I said, it has to do with trust. So many people don't believe that the moment you start, doing the reconfiguration outside the INEC headquarters, probably some outsiders may have one or two opportunities to do one or two things that may end up compromising, the BVAS.
Interesting. So much knock. I mean, to imagine that the president has even flown to Daura already, all that advance party, all that presidential jets, and the workers. The presidential jets is like moving the presidency from point to point. I know of a couple of friends who are participating in the state elections that had already taken off, to go and be with their people full time. Now that is going to be extended. Yeah, I can begin to imagine.
I have to re-strategize.
Yes, if the pockets have mouths, they would have been complaining by now. But we'll let that be and look at other issues on the polity. It was International Women's Day yesterday. Pauline Talen is complaining that not enough women are playing in the digital economic space. The Punch newspaper today is leading with a report that membership of National Assembly, female membership has dropped as much as 11 women are not returning. And we saw all the porn and pageantry that escorts the celebration of the International Women's Day. Is that all we should be doing as a country? Shouldn't we be seeing benchmarks? These women coming out and saying, by this time next year, we want to see that we have produced 2 CEOs or one. I mean, some modest target for themselves as a way of moving forward, rather than use these opportunities to always lament about how women have been left behind, or better still, how they can come together and use the women power. They have the largest voting bloc to begin to make things happen. What did you see in this IWD's celebration that is any different from what we have seen in the time past?
Well, it has become a ritual, that something that you do year in, year out. But honestly, we need to move ahead. We are now talking about the fact that 11 women will not be going back to the National Assembly. And if you look at the number of the women on the president's cabinet. I think there are about 6 or so out of about 40 or so. And then, so the women should not allow all this to just remain a ritual. You know, like you said, it will be good if they can, you know, come up with, you know, benchmarks, you know, and then institutionally, we should also help them. We should come up with laws, you know, with policies that can encourage women participation, not only in politics, in technology and what have you, but in all other aspects. You know, women now play football. They do virtually everything that, you know, men can do. And from what we have seen, so many women have made their marks. Like we talk about the Okonjo Iwealas, we talk about the Dora Akunyilis, so many of them who have made their marks in leadership positions. So it's not something that we should be treating as if, no, if a man is not there to be able to do it, then we shouldn't give women the opportunity. And it shouldn't also be, it's only when men cannot be found to do certain things that will now start going scouting for women. We should make it, you know, like a habit, a policy, so that women can now be encouraged, you know, to come out and like nothing stops us from maybe coming up with some statutory seats in the National Assembly to say that, okay, these seats should be reserved for women. And then we look at the best way to be able to find a way of filling all those positions. But we shouldn't allow it to become just a yearly ritual where the president will issue his statement and then the women will come out to lament, and then you know, we like update our statuses, and honestly we should go beyond that.
You know, well, just before we move on from that, there's something I'd like to touch on. A lot of people are actually of the opinion that the women themselves are not helping themselves. For example, now you have a state whereby there's a woman candidate vying for governorship. What stops every woman that is there to say, okay, I'm not voting along party lines now. This is a woman, let me come out and support this woman to get this, so that at least women can get a foothold in Nigerian politics. What stops women from doing something like that? That is the argument.
Well, you know, it's also about interest. Like if I have a husband that is also, you know, running for governorship, you may not expect me to maybe go along with the women agenda. But like you said, if the women, just half of them, if they can concentrate their energy, you know, and support one of them, honestly, nothing stops them from getting the seat. But as we are currently experiencing, you know, all the women, you know, they are divided. You know, some are even thinking, okay, this is not even the right time for a woman to become governor. Like so many people keep referring to what the First Lady said, that probably women should be encouraged to become deputy governors, so that maybe in the next 2-3 years, they will now have like a better opportunity to become governors. But honestly, that shouldn't be used as a reference, because like I said, we have not like seen a woman, you know, elected as a governor in Nigeria for us to even start assessing, to start saying, okay, whether women can do it or they cannot do it. Because right now, so many men have been doing it. Most of them have ended up with the EFCC, you know, as complete failures. You know, they have not been able to do anything. And so nothing should stop us from trying to see what a woman can do given the opportunity.
Interesting developments there. You said something that is quite instructive, which is finding a way to situate these things and codify them in some kind of law. I know that when Sanusi was CBN governor, there was some subtle instruction to the banks to have at least 25% of their board constituted as women. Long after he left, the women became chairmen of some major banks in Nigeria. First Bank, Access Bank, now women managing directors in FCMB, in GTB, in Fidelity Bank, and that's in Unity Bank, and that's some way to go. Perhaps even in the constitution of government boards for universities and polytechnics and colleges of education and all these parastatals and commission, we should begin to see a reflection based on competence, by the way, not just the fact that they are women. We saw yesterday another terrorist attack in Niger. It appears they also went for election duties as everybody else.
And now they have
and then suddenly
service.
the kidnappings are back, the shellings and the killing of innocent Nigerians are back. Everything we've heard that sort of went quiet, the fuel scarcity is back on the streets of Abuja. Everything that took a backseat sort of to allow the election hosts are now rearing their head in the most ugly manner. 50 people adopted. What's your impression of what had happened?
You know, like when they came up with the Naira redesign policy, they said one of the reasons, you know, is to stop all these bandits from herding people into the bush and what have you. But here we are, you know, like we said earlier, the criminals, you know, they are also re-strategizing. You know, if you stop them from one thing, they try to see how they can survive, because right now we are not having enough security agents to be able to man, you know, all the places that we need to man. And then probably they have also found a way of going beyond the hurdles, you know, placed on them by the Naira policy, because some of them will ask you to, instead of bringing money, to bring new motorcycles. Some will tell you to do. There are so many things that they are telling us to do, and then we are not, like, you know, getting all the necessary the way we should react. We have not been able to do that, and then, like you said, maybe it's because they also took part in the election. Who knows? The fuel queues, so many things. We are not like, we keep going in a cycle. Yesterday I saw the number of vehicles I saw on queue. Honestly, I couldn't even say anything, because this is Abuja. If something like this can happen in Abuja, then what about other states? And right now, it has become like normal, you know, for filling stations to be selling at above 300 Naira. And then even at that, to get the fuel has become very difficult.
Somebody was joking yesterday. He said, I queued for 1 hour to pay at the POS, then I queued extra 2 hours
to get the fuel.
Get the fuel at 320 Naira.
And that's one thing they keep doing. You know, even at the filling stations, they will say, okay, those with cash, you know, should follow this queue, and then those because right now the electronic payment platforms are not functioning the way they should. And despite the fact that the court has ruled, you know, the Supreme Court has said that the old 500 Naira and 1,000 Naira notes should remain legal tender until the end of the year. The CBN, the presidency, and all the relevant stakeholders, they are finding it difficult to comply. And you can see what a lawyer was even saying, that this is something that the president can be tried over once he is done with his tenure, because right now he has immunity. By May 29, that immunity will no longer be there. So honestly, I think the best is for us to comply. The Supreme Court has ruled. Nothing should stop us from complying, because so many banks, so many Nigerians right now are not like transacting with the old currency, because there is nothing from the relevant stakeholders to say, okay, do this or don't do it. And you know, people are okay, because as far as I am concerned, they shouldn't start collecting money that they cannot be able to salvage at the end of the day.
All right, so let's just circle back to initially what brought us to this conversation. We're talking about the issue of security and the attack in Niger. A few months back, there was this serious ruckus that was created when There was an issue of friendly fire concerning some herders and their cattle that were bombed and whatnot. We heard the cries for investigations, for people, for heads to roll. Well, up to now, we haven't really heard anything. And now we're getting another report that a Nigeria Air Force strike kills a pregnant woman and some teens in some parts of Kaduna. Is this turning into a trend? And are we expecting anything different from this?
Well, maybe the fact that we have not succeeded in handling the last one that happened, in a way that Nigerians will see that, yes, we are serious about ending all this, is it friendly fire, or do you even... the reality in Nigeria, we live side by side with these criminals. So sometimes without the right intelligence, without the right survey and what have you, you may end up dropping bombs where you shouldn't. And here we are talking about a pregnant woman and even the people. Sometimes we find it difficult to even tell the authorities about suspicious, questionable characters that are living among us. And anytime the security agents will come for them, will end up being like collateral damage. So the Air Force, the security agents should find a way, of lessening all these incidents of friendly fire and airstrikes where they shouldn't happen and all that. And then the ones that happened, we should try and show the people, why they happened and what we did to stop something like that from happening again, recurring again in the future.
All right, so quite unfortunate there. And
unfortunate indeed. We have exhausted quite a number of issues, but very quickly in 30 seconds, we saw the Vice President turn 66 on his way out. What a Vice President he has been, some people would say. We saw eulogies coming from across the divide about his persona. You just quickly give us your own thoughts in 30 seconds of the Vice President.
Well, I'm actually happy that he decided to celebrate or to mark the event with by spending some time with children that were orphaned as a result of the insurgency. And, he has placed himself in a very good stead in Nigeria because he has conducted himself very well. And at 66, I think he still has,
his life ahead of
him. And we are talking about 70-year-olds, and even above, still
vying for presidency.
So I think this will not be the end. We will hear about the Vice President when it comes to leadership and other things of responsibility.
Interesting there, and this is us from Trust TV also wishing him the best of health and what life has to offer beyond 66. This is the much we can take now. This is where we draw the curtains on the newspaper review. We'll see you at the top of the hour where we hope to serve you more interesting news. Please stay with us.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. It's 8 a.m. and I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
Top of the hour, 8 a.m. Of course, Trust TV's Daybreak. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
We'll move straight to the highlights of the news on the hour. INEC, why we postponed governorship state assembly elections.
And INEC declares no winner in Dogua's constituency, fixes rerun in 13 polling units.
Open banking, CBN directs banks to seek consents before using customers' data.
All right, now let's delve into the details. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has confirmed the postponement of the governorship election by a week. Confirming the postponement in a statement on Wednesday night, Barrister Festus Okoye, National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, said the Commission needed time for the reconfiguration of the BVAS used for the presidential election held on the 25th of February 2023. He recalled that on the 3rd of March 2023, the presidential EPT had given an ex parte order for some political parties to inspect materials used for the presidential election, including the forensic inspection of over 176,000 BVAS used in the election, which are located in INEC local government offices across the country. Daily Trust had reported how the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja granted the request of INEC to reconfigure the BVAS it used for the presidential election. The court, in a unanimous decision by a 3-member panel of justices, held that preventing the Commission from reconfiguring the BVAS would adversely affect the governorship and state assembly elections. It were dismissed objections by the Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi against the request.
The Independent National Electoral Commission has declared that there was no winner in the February 25th National Assembly elections in Dogua and Tudunwada Federal Constituency. Al-Hassan Dogua, Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, who contested on the All Progressive Congress platform, was initially declared winner of the exercise. However, the electoral umpire delisted his name from the reps-elect and failed to issue him a certificate of return. The Commission had said he was declared winner of the election under duress. The returning officer said he was forced to announce the winner of the election under duress. He said the difference between the two leading candidates was less than the number of the votes cancelled.
All right, moving on, the CBN has issued operational guidelines for open banking in Nigeria on Wednesday. Now, according to reports, the guidelines establish the principle for data sharing across banking and payment systems. In the guidelines, the CBN shall provide and maintain an open banking registry to provide regulatory oversight on participants, enhance transparency, and regulate operators within the open banking ecosystem. The guidelines also stipulate consent management, whereby consent of customers is required before their data can be obtained for open banking products and services, among others. CBN's Director, Payment System Management Department, Mr. Musa Jimo, stated that the guidelines were in furtherance of the bank's mandate to stabilize the financial system. Jimo added that the guidelines were also pursuant to the bank's role in deepening the financial system.
That's it on the highlight. Moving on to the packages we have for you this morning. President Muhammadu Buhari has appealed to Nigerians living in the diaspora to support the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu as he takes over the reins of government on May 29th. His message was sufficiently targeted at Nigerians living in Doha, Qatar, who he interacted with at the town hall meeting on Tuesday night. The president insisted that his administration had conducted credible, transparent, and fair elections and would conclude the assignment on Saturday with the governorship, state, and National Assembly elections. Kainde Amadu brings us the report.
There are currently about 7,000 Nigerians residing in Qatar who are gainfully engaged in diverse areas of human endeavor. Acknowledging the roles that Nigerians in diaspora have been playing in the development of the country, President Buhari disclosed that his administration had approved a national diaspora policy. The policy would support the development of programs by Nigerians in Diaspora Commission to facilitate the contributions of such citizens towards the development of their fatherland. Nigerian ambassador to Qatar, Yakubu Ahmed, believes that the successful conduct of presidential and National Assembly elections on the 25th of February is proof that Nigeria's democracy is indeed strong.
I equally pray for another round of successfully exercised during the governorship and state house of assembly election that will be held next Saturday.
In a similar vein, the Nigerian community in Qatar is thanking the president for de-emphasizing vote buying during those elections.
This is an election where money has taken backstage. We were very scared after the primaries, but we are so grateful to see what happened at this time of the presidential and national assembly election.
I also want to really thank you for your critique of African presidents that really want to stay in office forever.
Beyond the euphoria of meeting with the president, the pertinent question to ask is how does this strategy to engage Nigerians in Qatar positively contribute to the development back home?
Oh, definitely. You see that this hall was full of the most intelligent, the brightest people anyway. Even Qatar is proud of what Nigerians here are doing. There's no field we're not excelling. But here's the thing, how does it translate to your home country? The role of government is to provide an enabling environment, as we always say. And our role is to engage with them. Like already from here, we have some of them that want to build capacity, particularly in the medical field, some of them in the food and beverage business, some of them in the oil and gas business, and some of them are already seeing how they can invest in agriculture back home, bringing businesses back home. So that is the thing. Nobody will develop Nigeria but Nigerians.
Nigeria and the state of Qatar established diplomatic ties in 2013 and have since then maintained very cordial relations. On the president's entourage to Qatar, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
All right, now International Women's Day celebrates successes and contributions of women to societal development across the globe. The day also gives room for reflections on challenges affecting the female gender on various spheres of life. Now, Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail examines the struggle and successes of a 38-year-old visually impaired lady who defies all odds to become an advocate for women's rights in Gombe State. Let's take a look.
The face masks that we are using.
Rebecca Hassan is a 38-year-old visually impaired lady in Gombe metropolis. She lost vision since she was 13 years old, but despite the vision loss, she studied very hard and graduated from the University of Jos.
The doctor advised us that there is nothing that we can do except they will take me to school. So I started my school in CASES, that is Kaduna Special Education School. Where I went there to learn Braille, reading and writing, because I cannot continue with where I stopped when I was sighted. I have to go back and learn how to read Braille and to learn how to write Braille. That is where I started. I started in Kaduna Special Education Center. So this is where I started, and I proceed to Faith Tabernacle College in Plateau State is where I did my secondary school. Then I moved to University of Jos, that is UJ, where I obtained my degree.
Rebecca, who is passionate about women's rights and education, now runs a non-governmental organization, Inclusive Society for Women and Girls Initiatives.
I will not give up. Even the community sometimes, even to seek advice or to hear your view or to bring you at the table like any other person to come and discuss so that you will say your mind, also that you bring your contribution that will bring the progress of the community. They will see, since you have disability, there is no need of bringing you along. There is no need of advice, seeking for your advice. So the challenges everywhere, even in the office, even in the bank, in the market, everywhere.
On the spirit of the 2023 International Women's Day, Rebecca's dream is to help women with disability to access quality education.
Because out of hundreds of people, women with disability, more especially here in the north, is very few that went to school. So for that my dream is to see how I touch their life, how to see I bring them out of their bondage, out of where they are, so that they will come and attend school, so that they will achieve like me.
For Rebecca and other persons with disability, they are not disabled. All they need is special attention to present their talent for societal development. from Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
And moving on, as the world celebrates International Women's Day, the welfare, safety, and challenges facing women come to the fore with a view to addressing their plight for a better society. In Katsina, Abdullahi Yamadi meets some women who are struggling to survive with many orphans, but without shelter, food, and other basic needs.
Women constitute substantial percentage of world's population, with many exposed to dangers and increasing vulnerability in many societies. These women say they are living a miserable life since the day they were forced out of their communities, pushed into begging, exposed to dangers and uncertainty. In specific terms, they said their life's experiences are a mixture of sorrow and happiness.
We solely depend on whatever life offers. Opportunities like this one comes once in a while. We are trained on soap and pomade making. When we produce it, we sell to complement whatever we have just for a living.
At times, they had to go to the bushes to fetch firewood for sale to get what they could feed the children, not to talk of education, which is not a priority for them now. These children were in primary school when bandits attacked and forced them to abandon education pursuits to explore their potentials. The women also said it has never been so bad like this time. But the question is, what do local women make out of the International Women's Day being celebrated annually?
International Women's Day. Where did you get this from? What is Women's Day? To me, women are those enjoying in the offices or those who have better opportunities in their matrimonial homes. To me, what I see is what I have.
Observers say International Women's Day celebration only offers opportunity for sober reflection without much positive impact on vulnerability of the opposite sex by governments and other stakeholders. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
All right, that's it for the headlines and, of course, reports for this hour. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we take a look at the topic of discussion for the day. Do stay with us.
All right, welcome back. It's been almost a week after President Muhammadu Buhari and the Central Bank of Nigeria are yet to respond to the Supreme Court ruling making the old Naira note legal tender until December 31st, 2023. The Apex Bank gave the ruling on Friday, March 3rd, nullifying the federal government's decision to stop the old Naira and 1,000 Naira notes being legal tender, which took effect on February 10th. Nearly a month after a majority of the old notes were mopped out of circulation, the challenge of cash squeeze persists as new notes have remained elusive. What's the implication of this silence? We have in the studio a strategist, policy analyst, and the group CEO of global investment and trade company GITC, Malam Baba Yusuf, to share his thoughts with us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning once again.
Thank you, Sunday. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
We have complained to a level where everybody had run out of ideas. Not sure what to complain about. We just basically are taking one day at a time until whenever we seem to, whenever it will please our captors to set us free, as the case may be. And as we have seen from our introductions, it's been nearly 1 week. The Supreme Court have spoken, but somehow the institutions that are supposed to draw life from the statement of the Supreme Court and appropriate it in its policy directives are yet to do so. The President has not spoken, the Attorney General has not directed, and the CBN has not acted in line with the Supreme Court's pronouncement. What do you think is happening in the Nigerian state as we speak?
Thank you very much. What is happening is what I will say. What is happening? The country has become highly transactional in governance instead of being strategic, highly impulsive, and more worrisome now is the complete dislocation of what should have been a highly locked-stepped, if you like, governance framework within the executive itself and, of course, across the arms of government, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And more importantly, the almost complete disregard for rule of law, which is becoming more pronounced as we ironically evolve evolve in our political history or political journey. Is more importantly worrisome because the judiciary is supposed to be a check, and supposed to be a guide as well. But unfortunately, that's not happening. And where we have gotten to today is more worrisome because if there is no regard for rule of law, then anarchy is looming. Government selects the judgment of courts to apply, and it is beginning to permeate also to citizens or corporates, if you like, in the private sector and the generality of the public, which is highly eroding the position or the stance or the relevance of judiciary in our society. I don't want to say we are getting to a point of being in a jungle, but we have a semblance of that. It's a virtual jungle if there is no rule of law. Of course, the judiciary is also has some portion of blame with regards to where we are today. The acts of, with due respect, the lordships of the court, of the courts, yes, and all the critical stakeholders within the judiciary, including the lawyers, some of them, have led us to where we are today, I believe. Of course, one may also, say that they are part of a larger society, so they are also, reacting or a reaction of what the total package called Nigeria is.
Well, talking about the total package called Nigeria, we're at the at the precipice, or is it at the brink of ushering in a new government? And well, even at that, the governorship election was just recently postponed. It hit some of us, it took some of us by surprise. I mean, like, I just got to learn of it this morning myself. Before we move on to talking about the CBN and the rule of law and whatnot, what's your take on the postponement of the governorship election? Do you think it will have anything to do? Do you think it might have any effect on the perception of the seeming credibility or not of the process itself?
To be honest with you, Ibrahim, I expected this.
Okay.
When as a keen observer of what is happening, or a key player, because I'm a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I'm very interested in the political process and all the happenings that were unraveling and the outcome of the presidential and National Assembly elections and the actions, that culminated. Some of us could see clearly that there is potential of extending the date or scheduling of the governorship elections. Very simple. Obviously, there were project management issues, there were other issues, depending on where you sit, but totally we know the process had issues. And because of that, the critical players decided to take actions. For example, the presidential candidates of the Labour Party, Excellency Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Wazirin Adama Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the presidential candidate of NNPP, Rabi Musa Konkoso, Doctor, Senator, and also, of course, the president-elect, if you like, Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. All have taken actions or are reacting to actions taken by other players, which led to the court pronouncement. And for that pronouncement to be actioned by INEC, it is natural that the election will have to be postponed. If critical players or litigants in this case, that are the candidates, sought for within their rights and within the provision of the Electoral Act to inspect election materials, including the BIVAs, which are the same instruments that will be used for the governorship election. It presupposes that those equipments must be left the way they are until the inspections have taken place. Otherwise, what will happen is what I can call contamination of evidence, right? And to that extent, it is only natural that the elections be postponed. Today is Thursday. The ruling came yesterday. Next tomorrow is supposed to be election. We have over 170,000 polling units, which is equivalent to the number of BIVAS machines that would be inspected, that are supposed to be deployed. There's even a logistic angle, there's a technology angle of it, there's a logistic angle of it, right? One is they have to back up the data, and they have to reset these machines, right? There's timeline to do that. There are what you will call the protocols, the technology protocols to deal with that. And then there's the logistic aspect of it, getting these machines, moving them, preparing them, man and material, and all other factors. So it is all, for me, I'm not surprised. I was smiling, expecting this will happen. But the beauty of it is, rather than rush and have an election that will further exacerbate the hue and cry and the emotional, psychological impact of the elections that have taken place, regardless of where you stand, whether you are with the party that has won or lost, everybody has something to say about the process. We saw also the president-elect taking a strategic reactive position to say he also wants to inspect the material, which is very okay. So to that extent, let us be more sure-footed, with regards to the governorship election, so that when it happens, it will be a better process than what has happened. So I think it's okay.
Interesting perspective there from you. Still going back to the issue. We have seen, in the face of this seeming silence from the presidency and the office of the Attorney General, some semblance of movement or motion in the polity. We have seen banks take it upon themselves to start dispensing the old Naira notes in their votes. At the risks of being called out, we've seen GT, Zenith Bank, a couple of others, Wema Bank and the likes, dispensing the old Naira notes in their votes, not the ones they are remitted to the CBN. And in a bid to understand what is happening, we had made efforts to reach the central bank. They are neither denying what is happening, nor accepting it. They have not issued a statement to say you can go ahead and issue. They had neither come down heavily on the banks that have decided to issue without their express instruction. What does this signpost? Is it that the banks are getting legal opinions from their own management to say we cannot be seen to corroborate what appears to be an illegality, or there had been some kind of unwritten circular to say you can go ahead but you would not get an instruction from, or there is a complete loss of confidence in the CBN to provide direction, as it were, to this monetary agent? What exactly do you think is happening?
I think it's a combination of all you have said and a reflection of the sad reality of our country today with regards to the governance framework. The banks you have mentioned, for those that are doing that, I think are being very tactical in trying to manage the situation. Of course, they are all Nigerians, and because they are front end, why do I say front end? They are the banks that see the people every day, lined up in the banks, queuing day and night, you know, trying to withdraw not such huge amount of money to survive, and they are not getting it. So the feedback, maybe the hierarchy of the bank is also getting, of course, what they are seeing even in the media is reflective of things that are so bad. I mean, as we speak today, you know, even the value of money has reduced by almost 50% just by this, you know, ill-timed policy. If you have to withdraw 10,000 naira at the POS, for example, at the cost of, let's say, 2,000, some cases 3,000 naira. So what you get in the case of a 3,000 naira for 10,000 is your 10,000 has automatically become 7,000 naira. You have lost 30% of the 10,000 naira that is already suffering the vagaries of inflation over a period of almost 7 months already. And by the time you take that 7,000 naira, right, to go and do transactions you are supposed to do by transfer or easily, because of the way things are, you have to travel farther to expense that cash or to spend that cash, which is a cost on the money. By and large, when you go to the market, because of the cost of money for the sellers, for the traders as well, the prices have hiked up. You know, you can see the queues at the filling station, and you have to go to get to do the transfers. And all this, from my standpoint of view, in my opinion, reduces the value of the currency by almost 50% if you take the total value chain impact on Naira, just by this policy, apart from other economic parameters. So the human beings that are operating in the banks are also victims of the situation. Possibly that is the reason why some of them will say, you know what, let us take this position. And in reality, in line, you know, according to the law, the highest court of the land has given a ruling on this. We don't expect the CBN to sanction us, if at all. And even if they will, anyway, there's what I call the time factor here. God is God, that he created time. 4 things God created that keeps us at bay: time, health, age, and what other, I'll remember the other one and tell you. What am I saying? We are coming to the tail end of this administration. That is the time factor. And the CBN governor's tenure is also coming to an end. So for so long he can push this as long as you want. Because, by the way, you know, including what you have said, yesterday the CBN came with a press release that they did not give instruction for the old notes to be. So in flagrant, disregard to the Supreme Court judgment. They are reiterating their position, that they have taken inter alia. So I think water is trying to find its way, if I borrow that phrase, and that is what is happening. It's a reaction to a very, very critical, choking, nerve-wracking reality of Nigeria, and that is why you see some of the banks trying to be creative that way, even though it's almost too late, unless the president of this country takes a position that will help ease this situation. Things will continue to get worse. And interestingly, like I always say, the incoming president will face political, economic, and social headwinds, partly due to this, very, very ill-timed and ill-placed policy.
All right. Well, your response now has actually done a lot to negate the question I was going to. I was actually going to put across, but you did make mention of it, and I believe anybody who listens to your response now knows where you're leaning towards. But I'd like us to face it head on. Looking at the policy itself, in generality, the Kool-Aid that we were sold when this policy was being dished out was it was going to reduce inflation somehow, that it was going to reduce incidents of banditry and kidnap for ransom, and it was going to, a lot of things were actually said. It was going to mitigate vote buying and all that. Looking at all these things that we were sold on, and looking at how the policy is right now, how effective would you say it has been?
If I want me to rate it on a scale of 1 to 100, 0, and I'll give you my reasons. But before I get that, the last factor I wanted to talk about that God has placed that tame all of us is death. So it's death, time, age, and health. So coming back to this, 0 because I have mentioned earlier the impact of this policy on the populace, on the naira, on the populace. Okay? So with regards to one of the first critical function of government is to protect the life and livelihood of its citizens, the welfare of the citizenry. That has been seriously impacted. If you ask yourself, or if I ask how life has been, how life is today compared to 3 months ago, it's worse. In all ramifications, people are dying in the hospital because they can't pay, not because they don't have the money. It is so bad, we have moved from a situation where people are dying because they don't have the money to pay for services. So there's another chunk of people that have joined this foray of people are dying because they are not able to even pay for the services due to the total failure of the system, due to this policy. With regards to banditry and insecurity, just yesterday in Niger State, the bandits attacked, they have kidnapped people, they have killed people, right? The National Security Advisor, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, spoke about the impact of this cashless policy on the armed forces, on the security forces. It is affecting their logistics. Logistics is a critical success factor to any security and armed force agency, right? Even their salaries. Don't forget they are also human beings. They are also Nigerians. They have families. Some are sick. Some have to go to school. They have to feed every day. So the chain effect, the domino effect, is all over. When you talk about election and one of the key dummies, CBN has been selling is it will stop vote buying, and a lot of other political players bought into that dummy, surprisingly so. Yeah, maybe largely, but you see, all the political players are victims of this. But we all know that it did not stop vote buying in a way and manner that it would have reflected or affected significantly the outcome of this election, if you ask me. People that were doing projections, I don't want to mention names or parties, with regards to the key actor that was being tamed, or they were being tamed from getting into to win the election, won the elections anyway, right? So suffice it to say that, is that really a factor, right, at the end of the day? And it depends on where you are sitting, because everybody buys votes in Nigeria. The recent, the Nigerian Bar Association released an interim report with regards to the outcome or the process that culminated into, the emergence of the president-elect and the senators-elect and the members of House of Representatives-elect, and said there were vote buyings either by cash or transfer. To add to that report, we have seen in the media, and I can safely say I have seen, where people are also being induced. And I said it at the beginning of this policy that what the CBN has done, and with the approval of the president, is to actually force the principle of necessity is a mother of invention. And that at the end of the day, the political class will find ingenious ways of inducing the electorate, which is another way of commercializing the vote transactions, right? And what do? You see people voting. It got worse. Things are so bad that people take one packet of spaghetti to vote rather than 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira, right? Depending on what kind of spaghetti you are given. People were taking less than that. A can of pig milk. Things that before now, even with the vote buying, where the vote was even more valuable, so the vote has even become less valuable, as the case may be. And the reports are there from the election observers and all that really the vote buying still took place. One may argue that, yeah, but it has been reduced. If it has been reduced, when you compare the value or the result, have we achieved the objective vis-a-vis stopping vote buying, or have we made life more miserable for the average Nigerian? And you put it on a scale, what is better? Who is better off? The Nigerians should be better off. The citizens should be better off. Are we better off? No, we are worse off. There are a lot of issues raised with regards to the electoral process, depending on where you sit on the scale. So to that extent, it's not of zero impact. In fact, I changed my position. It's of negative impact. Zero is even better.
Taking up from those negative indices, there have been various school of thoughts around all of the things that are going on. There are those who have argued that since the CBN was not a party to what had happened, it would require the Attorney General's mandate. The Attorney General have been technical, and they are saying that they don't have any mandate to instruct or direct a monetary policy authority to take monetary policy action. But we'll come to that. Some other school of thought are worried because every society sort of have structures that helps to bail it at the moments of crisis. The governors have attempted, the president has not listened to them. The Supreme Court has taken a position, the president don't seem to care. He would rather go to Doha and return quietly to his Daura. Which other line of defense do we have? I say this in respect of the fact that we don't seem to see anything coming from the NLC. It's like once it is not about salary increment for its members, they don't even understand what advocacy in its real sense should be. And all other pressure groups, the NBA are interested in giving us a postmortem of the presidential elections. We are not seeing them put their weights. They can actually call for the debarring of the Attorney General. I mean, it's within their statutes. If a member of his profession is now the architect of a complete disregard for the temple of justice, something can be done from his end. Why does it appear that every pressure group that we have always known seem to be quiet?
One word to use for that: politics. Almost every player, every critical stakeholder in the Nigerian project has become politically inclined. It is not something new, but it is so much so with negative impact. Look at the executive. The policy itself, with all sense of responsibility, conceptualization and actioning of this policy, as far as some of us are concerned, and I think we are in the majority, is politically inclined. Of course, even with the view to say you are going to stop vote buying and all that, but we only start to trigger this process 3 months to election, when you could have sat down to come out with a strategic framework to do this from 2019 to date, to ensure you have a cashless policy, to ensure you mop up liquidity, to ensure you gag and chain whatever political players you want to chain from doing whatever they are doing. Unfortunately, very unfortunately so, members of the same team are divided and fighting, in the quest for power or to stop somebody from, getting into office. And to that extent, completely lose focus and come with a very, very terrible, evil objective, which has fallen on its face. In all this, I always say that I'm still looking at the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because the buck stops on his table. First of all, as a father of the nation. Secondly, as the chief executive of this country. Whether CBN was part of the suit or not, there is a president that will call everybody to order. Whether the Attorney General is playing the ostrich or not, or is even a critical contributor to the issue. Sadly so, as a member of the Temple of Justice, as a senior advocate of Nigeria, as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and importantly as a Nigerian, as a citizen. And the part where he comes from in this country is one of the worst affected with regards to this issue. Is taking this position, leaves much to be desired. But of course, it's not their fault. We have a chief executive of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that even where you don't have these issues within the executive, he should come and provide that leadership. He should come and show that compassion, that empathy, and put things in order so that things will be better. Unfortunately, that is not happening. You talked about Labour Congress. Most of these guys or all these agencies or all this, they have become special, most largely over time have become special purpose vehicles for some vested interest or parochial interest pursuance. And that is what we see. And that is why these checks and balances are not happening in our polity. Now what you see is people either sitting on the fence for some whatever reason, strategic or tactical, or because if, like you said, it does not impact me, but you know what, Sunday, it impacts you whether you like it or not. You will have an aunt or a brother somewhere that all of us are suffering this. Unfortunately, people are not taking position for whatever parochial reason. This is the sad situation of a failure of a leadership value chain in this country.
All right. Well, you talked about the actions or inactions of the president himself. We just read on the front pages of the newspapers some legal personalities offering their opinion that the president is leaving himself open for prosecution after he steps down because of the seeming disregard for the Supreme Court judgment. We shouldn't forget the fact that earlier, before this judgment was actually passed, the Supreme Court gave a ruling and said, okay, we're going to look at this, but before we pass judgment, the status quo should remain the same. The president came out and said something totally different. And nobody's saying anything about it. And now he's quiet and nobody's saying anything about it. So we just heard that he will leave himself open to prosecution if they decide to take that track after he leaves office. It's doubtful, but still, if that were to happen, will that be, how good will that be for the nation or otherwise?
First of all, I'm sorry to say it's not going to happen because of the kind of political system we run. I look forward to see one of the critical things the incoming president will do, dealing with the issue of restructuring, dealing with I hope and pray that part of the discussion will be looking at the entire political structure or the political system we run. So the way it is, even apart from this particular issue, to expand the conversation, there are provisions within our constitution that give some leeway to sort of manage or hold at bay to a certain extent some of our, top line leaders like the president, like the governors. Of course, they have immunity. But we also have provisos for impeachment. Don't forget that even members of the ruling party, some months ago, when push was coming to shove and heat was everywhere, were already muting the idea of impeachment, which has gone down the drain because it's almost impossible to impeach the president. In line with the provisions, when you look at the provisions and even the how it can play out, how is it possible to play out? When have you ever seen even a former governor being charged for contempt? Even in the recent part with the EFCC chair, The Inspector General of Police, they were charged for contempt, isn't it? What has happened? Talk less of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, whether sitting or former. You know, I don't see that happening, sadly, because this is Nigeria. And I think people do this because, of course, nothing will happen. That's my honest opinion on this. It's not going to happen. Even for the CBN governor, even for the Attorney General, not even the President, that flouts court orders will not face any consequences. Because in Nigeria, consequences with regards to disregard for rule of law is the least impactful, or even if it exists, there is no consequence for these things.
We have seen with, of course, the benefit of technology, how checks and balances operate in other climes. In Egypt, for instance, we saw the military and the rest of them being a separate arm of government, sort of, whether in terms of choosing its leaders or sort of exerting a subtle pressure on the political system where they fail to operate within the ordinances of their law. In the United States, we've seen some independence with the Office of the Attorney General, as separate from the Minister of Justice. We have seen the CIA take on investigations of sitting high-profile government functionaries, and even a system that sort of helps it to purge itself. In other words, where constitutional provisions are flaunted, they move in straight on the part of the Constitution. Why is it impossible for the police, for instance, or the DSS, or whatever the institutions would be, to begin to take actions against people who should naturally implement the positions of the Supreme Court? Like you said, some things are impossible. Are we ever going to get there? Would it require some kind of constitutional amendment to provide that kind of independence that would allow institutions like this to mandate authorities, executives within the judiciary, within the executives, to do the biddings of the Supreme Court?
Of course, Sunday, you have answered partly your question yourself. We are suffering a constitutional quagmire. The Constitution, everybody that wants Nigeria to progress agrees that there's much left to be desired with regards to our Constitution. Majority of the citizens are not happy with the Constitution. And to that extent, a proper review, I use the word proper deliberately, a review of our Constitution is critical to the success of the Nigerian project. And that is why I'm talking about the restructuring, and I'm happy that all the presidential candidates, and indeed the president-elect, even for the president-elect, he has been talking about restructuring even before the campaign time, just like the presidential candidate even of the PDP, I think. So we expect to see some actions with regards to that, because it is actually going to help us moving forward. When there is a lacuna in the Constitution, of course agencies will not act. Even where they want to act, the other vested interests within the structure will harp on that so that they don't act. And indeed, you are aware, Sunday, Brian, even where the provisions of the constitutions are clear, people still breach. So there is need for us to overhaul our Constitution. There is need for restructuring. There is need for a total review of how Nigeria is as a project, as a country, for us to actually be more sure-footed, be more directional, be more result-oriented, be more positively impactful to the generality of Nigeria and Nigerians. Until that is done, we will just be doing what I call running on the treadmill. It shows in the indicator you have run 15 kilometers, but guess what? You are still standing in the same place. We need to make tangible progression for the betterment of our country. Until the right things are done, until we have the right structure, the right mechanism, the right system, that is not going to happen. And it comes back to what? Having the right leader in place at the right time. We hope the incoming president will do that. We look forward to that. I'm very confident that we'll have a better progress moving forward.
From what you said, it seems like the president-elect will have a lot on his plate when he eventually takes over.
To be honest, I don't envy the incoming president. And sadly, you know, the administration is making it more difficult for the incoming president. Because if you look at all the indices, looking at the rear view mirror 4 or 5 years behind, and looking ahead, from World Bank to IMF to even the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and all, things were not looking good even before now, and things are looking worse. So and Nigeria as it is, with the diversity, with the issues of polarization, our inherent issues, you know, it has a plate full of issues to deal with. I believe that by the grace of God, God will give him the capacity and the enablement to do it, because it's one thing to be the president with all you have, but we should pray for our president, incoming president, and indeed for all our leaders, for wisdom, for understanding, for enablement, and for all of us Nigerians to understand that we have various roles to play for the president to achieve. The president is not omnipotent, he's not a superpower. Indeed, we need to play our various roles.
Before I let you go, the president has showed up in several international forums, and wherever he has had the opportunity, he sort of gives himself the thumbs up. He says he has met all his pre-election promises. He's certain he has done very well against whatever indices that are churned out by even the federal government agencies. He sort of gives himself an above average pass mark. And one wonders, when you listen to people like you talk about indices, you know, one wonders whether the president is availed the same indices as the one that we consume publicly, or there are some parameters he used to evaluate what he has done that is different from what we understand, or that the people around him, as we always pretend to say, don't seem to be telling the president the truth. What impression does he make on you every time you see him come out in a public forum like the one he had in Doha, where he seemed to suggest to people against the run of play that he has done very well and he has met all of his political campaign promises?
You know, Sunday, this is the normal political posturing of leaders. Self-appraisals are always mostly on the positive, even for all of us human beings, talk less of a sitting president and outgoing one for that matter. Because one may argue that in a normal situation, if actually the appraisal he is reeling out is not true, maybe he shouldn't have been the president. Maybe in another climb he would have resigned. Maybe he would have been impeached. But indices aside, because we also hear, not just in the context of Nigeria, in fairness of Nigeria or in fairness of President Buhari, even in the United States of America, when indices are churned out, most times the establishment disregards it. Ironically, in our case, even the indices that are churned out by government agencies are discountenanced by the establishment. That being said, what is critical for us, for me as a Nigerian and for Nigerians and for even the international fora, is not just the indices. It's the reality on ground, which actually the indices are supposed to reflect. And what we see on the streets, what we see in Nigeria, is what is telling us what we are going through. So the president is at liberty to self-appraise and to say he has done all that he's saying he has done. But what is reality cannot be changed or erased by anybody. And that is what will remain indelible in the annals of history. And that is what will remain the variables or the factors that everybody will account for before Almighty God.
Interesting. Strategist, policy analyst, group CEO of Global Investment and Trade Company, GITC, Malam Baba Yusuf, has been in the studio with us in the last half hour, digesting, helping us to understand, helping us to make sense of what our realities are, of what the projections have been, and of how the establishment has behaved in the last couple of months with regards to one singular issue that has had a colossal effect on just about everything that we do, our currency, and its availability for every Nigerian. I want to thank you very much for making time to be here, and it's a pleasure to be with you always. It's a masterclass not just for Nigerians at home, but for even those of us in the studio. And we look forward to when you will show up again to share this insightful perspective with us.
Thank you very much, Sunday, Ibrahim. Always a pleasure to come here. Thank you for the opportunity, most obliged, and thank you very much, Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Nigerians, for allowing us free access into your living room today. I hope we have brought you education, we have brought you information, we have brought you entertainment. And remember that we are all going through this together, and we would emerge on the other side victorious together. Nigeria is what is important to all of us, and this country is ours to plow and not to plunder. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Let's do this again tomorrow.
All right, Nigeria is all we have, and definitely each and every one of us has a role to play to make Nigeria what we want it to be. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.